What did you call us the first time you were on? The podcast boys, I think?
Yep.
We're back.
We like to potty.
This time, this is going to be the quickest, earliest, and by quickest I mean earliest review we've done today. Death Cab For Cutie's newest album came out today.
There used to be a way to stick it to the man. It was called rock and roll. Guess what? Oh, no. The man ruined that, too, with a little thing called MTV.
Don't talk to me about rock and roll. I'm out there in the clubs and on the streets, and I'm living it. I am rock and roll.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
So, yeah. Welcome back, Mark.
Hello.
That's Mark. He is my peer today. I am David. If you want to follow along on Instagram, at David to my peers. We're also on Facebook. Just look up Music to My Peers. I post mostly on Instagram, sometimes on Facebook. I'm trying to be better. And sometimes these reviews are also on YouTube. So the last two have been. We'll see if we keep that up. But yeah, we're going to cover Death Cab For Cutie's latest album called Thank You For Today. It came out today. How special is that?
You're asking
Do
me
I need to close the windows again?
You asking me how special it is that it came out today?
Yeah, I'm closing the windows. Not that you were looking out the window, but Mark gets distracted easily.
That's a bad question. I guess it's good that it came out today, but it really came out on Monday.
Well, the how special is that remark was the fact that we're actually getting to a review the day this album came out.
Well,
so you're right. Yeah, it's streamed on NPR since Monday, so I had the opportunity to listen to it a couple of times. Yeah, so let's get into talking about it. First and foremost, Mark, what are your thoughts on Thank You For Today by Death Cab For Cutie?
It's probably better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it would.
Now,
they've been declining a little bit.
Sure. I was going to say, okay, what's your reason for it being better than you thought it would be?
I didn't think it would be good because they've been around so long, and
it is. I will say this before getting into too many details. I was thinking about it. This, to me, is their best album since Narrow Stairs. Now, I don't know if that was the one that came out after Plans. Mm-hmm. If you're looking it up. Now, I don't know where it sits amongst those albums as far as top Death Cab For Cutie albums, because it is different than those albums, obviously. This is the first record without Chris Walla, as we briefly discussed on the Foxing review. Chris Walla produced the latest Foxing album. I think that's how that came up. But anyway, it does feel different. There were some things that I noticed on the record that were different to me from old Death Cab. It's a lot more... It feels a lot more mellow, if that makes sense. But like Death Cab is by no means, especially like since, the early days, they haven't really been a band that has a lot of really high energy, in your face songs, right? Like they're all fairly even keel, but this one I think is pretty consistent across the board, just like really relaxed. And I really enjoyed that. The guitar work on this album is obviously different from the past. Chris Walla being a big part of the band in the writing in the past. I feel like the guitar work takes a more laid-back approach, which really fits well. But, yeah, so you liked the album more than you thought. What were some kind of standout points?
I was going to say, I just felt like there's maybe no song that's amazing, no one song.
Right.
But there's also no real bad dead spots. Like,
yeah.
I can listen to the whole thing consecutively.
Through. Yeah.
We were talking about Kitsugi the other day, and there's like the first four songs are really good,
and then it falls apart.
You might as well just turn it off.
Yeah, it really does fall apart. Whereas, and that was one thing I was looking at with this album, and I was nervous for a moment because When We Drive, I think, is probably my favorite song on the album, and then after that, the beginning of Autumn Love, I don't like until like the guitar riff comes in. At first, I'm like, oh. I'm not like the acoustic guitar stuff that's going on. And then this kind of little bit of a funky guitar riff comes in. I'm like, okay. Now let's keep, because I was worried that I was like, because that's literally the half point of the album. I'm like, okay, is it going to just go downhill from here? And it doesn't, like, because, with When We Drive being my favorite song, I want to say 60 in Punk, which is the last song on the record, is probably my second favorite song.
It's my favorite song.
Yeah, so it's nice that you don't like get to a point and then just kind of go, okay, I've got nothing else to look forward to, and then it really like because I mean, as you like, there's not a lot of like real at this point, anyways, for me, like standout tracks where I'm like, okay, like this is competing with older Death Cab songs, whether, you know, like When Soul Meets Body or, you know, like different songs from back in the day where they really stand out. There isn't really that necessarily. In fact, maybe the one that's most standout-ish I did not like at first, and that was Gold Rush. When they first released it, I was like, I don't know if I like this. And it's really just the repeat of Gold Rush in the chorus that annoys me. It's kind of grown on me a little bit. I don't mind it as much as I used to. But it definitely, when I first heard it, that was why I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this album, because that lead single, I was like,
I was going to say, I don't like that song.
Yeah, I mean, I dislike it less probably because, you know, it's not as, I don't get shocked as much by the Gold Rush repeat that just goes over and over again. You know, it just kind of becomes part of the background of the song a little bit. But yeah, it definitely, it had me worried. But all in all, when listening to this record, it is for sure a solid record. Like I was quite surprised as well, but not necessarily because, you know, their last two albums weren't that great, but more so because that first single I was not into.
I also don't know what else you can really put on the radio from this album. Maybe Your Hurricane.
Yeah, maybe. And Your Hurricane definitely reminded me a little bit of older Death Cab. I don't know if it was just like lyrically, like there's a few things going on there. I did want to point out though with the song When We Drive, it maybe what I like so much about it is it feels like a sequel to one of my favorite Death Cab songs off Transatlanticism, Passenger Seat, which is just like this short little mellow song, but just the way he's talking about, like, I guess just like being in the vehicle, driving somewhere and with someone else sort of deal. It kind of has that whole vibe going on. But yeah, so I mean, overall, I was also kind of surprised, but again, just based off of Gold Rush, and it is like, I don't know why they chose that song as a lead single for the album. I'd be curious to find out why they went with that one. I mean, maybe it is kind of the more upbeat.
It's pop. It's the arguably like poppiest.
Yeah,
song.
I mean that's fair. It's just I think it's purely just in that Gold Rush bit that he just keeps being repeated. Gold Rush.
Well, could the radio edit be shorter?
I don't know how long is the song. Is it even that long? I don't know if it's a long song. It's just that kind of gets on my nerves. Like the song is
4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
Cut off a minute of Gold Rush.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's borderline. It's on the longer end probably of radio singles, like just on the longer end. But yeah, sure.
Speaking of radio singles, have you ever heard? I know when I lived in Calgary for a while, one of their pop stations started doing just like a
60-second.
They're like 60-second, and then it would just like cut.
Yeah,
I
think they ran into issues from artists being like, I don't think you can do that to our music, sort of deal. Like
they weren't. I don't think they were even edited. They were just like
they just cut them.
They like. I want to say they just kind of crossfaded.
That's hilarious. That's the worst. That is just like that is the top of what annoys me about radio. Just like just being a single seeker. I suppose that sounds. Is that a lifestyle? I'm a single seeker. I don't know. Anyways, but we're people who just. I'm a fan of listening to albums, right? So like the idea of someone just going like, I just want to hear 60 seconds of us and like flowing from one thing to the next. I'm like, just drive me
It
crazy.
kind of works with like top 40 though.
I'm sure to an extent, yeah. I bet you there's still like some of those artists in there who you can give a little bit of, say like an Ed Sheeran, who you can give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for like songwriting and wanting an artist who takes pride in crafting songs. I don't know if that's true about Ed Sheeran. I don't know anything about Ed Sheeran now.
Yeah,
I've just seen him in like interviews and whatever.
If the song were to change at some point, you could completely miss
sure.
like a section.
Yeah. But this song we could have changed. We could have taken out the Gold Rushes. It just feels so weird to me. But this is an opportunity though, because we've kind of discussed this on and off, not on the show, but Death Cab in general. So Ben Gibbard is one of my all-time like lyricists. Like I love the way he works words. I know some people find his metaphors and whatever can be a little much, a little cheesy, but I don't know. For the most part, I can really get into it. And I was introduced to Death Cab for Cutie just by a friend who, it was when Plans had just come out. He's like, you have to hear this album. So I guess now down the road, I've been listening to Death Cab for quite some time, but I wasn't one of those fans that was there from the beginning. Some people might wonder, okay, I like to say we focus on this show of, more on pop punk stuff with their roots in pop punk, emo, and whatever. And it's funny because that's why we're reviewing Death Cab, is because their early albums you could definitely say fit into that emo scene. And I guess that was not intentional though, because we both read an interview with Ben Gibbard where he ranked the Death Cab albums. I think it was on Noisy, I think that did it. But he listed he was talking about one of the earlier albums and how, it got labeled as emo, and how he actually hates, he never associated the band with, that emo sound, which I think is interesting now, because I do think he gained a lot of fans because of the being involved in that scene. And so anyways, how did you get into Death Cab? Because you've been around for a little while with them.
I don't even remember where it started, but it was before Plans. But I think I just knew a bunch of singles. I don't think there was any albums I listened to even before that. Because
it's funny. I mean, they talk about, obviously, one big moment for them was being
OC?
Yeah, being featured on an episode of the OC. And eventually there's even an episode where they are playing live in the music club or whatever.
That's what I remember, yeah.
Yeah, but so before that, the song, I think it was Movie Script Ending, is that the song? Mm-hmm. Was featured in an episode and Seth Cohen is like, oh, I love Death Cab for Cutie, and puts this song on or whatever. I think they were going on a road trip. I think it might have been the Tijuana episode. I like the OC, but I didn't watch the OC until after it was done, basically. So by the time I got to watching the OC, I already knew who Death Cab for Cutie was because Plans was out and I was listening to it. But I know for a lot of people that was a big introduction for them, and I think that's kind of neat. I don't know if we have a TV show right now, because the OC really helped push a lot of different artists, and they had this thing where they would feature art. I know the Killers were featured on an episode where they played in that club, and Rooney was another one. Which, I mean, out of Death Cab for Cutie, Rooney, and the Killers, I think Rooney's probably doing the least.
Modest Mouse was there too.
Oh, that's right. Yep, they were on there too.
I think they were more known at that point. Float On, I believe, was already out. People knew who they were.
Yeah, that's possible.
I knew I waited to watch the OC till later, so I knew. Yeah. I don't remember how I found Death Cab, but
I can remember. I want to say I was in a van, was road tripping with some friends, and my buddy who introduced them to me, I think he put it on and was like, "What is this?" He's like, "Oh, it's Death Cab for Cutie." I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And it was Plans, and then so it was that summer, I think. He was going to see Death Cab for Cutie. They were touring with Franz Ferdinand, and it might have been the fall, whatever. But he's like, I don't think he had tickets. He had a friend, his cousin had tickets, and then his cousin won tickets. So then now had floor seats at this show. And then so he was getting rid of these other tickets he had. So my buddy Ryan asked me, he was like, oh, you want to go see Death Cab for Cutie? And so we went. And it is one of the moments that I will probably never forget as far as live music is concerned, because they opened that set with Marching Bands of Manhattan, which, I mean, if you don't know Death Cab for Cutie, it's the opening track on Plans, and it just has this big organ fade swell type deal, and it's just live, it was just this huge sound, right? To start the show, and it was so good. So we sit there, watch the whole show, and then Franz Ferdinand comes on. They were co-headlining with Franz Ferdinand, and they come on, and I think I stayed for about 2 or 3 songs. And I'm like, all right, I'm out, which is a bonus, because sometimes it's nice to be home early. I know you like to go to bed at 9 at night, so it's real nice for you to be home early. So the last time have you seen Death Cab live?
No, I was going to say I have not.
Man, so because they were just here in Edmonton on the Kintsugi tour, and is that even how you say it? I don't even know how you say it. But they co-headlined again with Metric, and again they played first, and again it was perfect because they played their set, which was really good. It didn't open with marching band, so I was a little bit disappointed in that. I don't remember what they opened with, but I was like, oh, that's too bad. But we stayed for about 2 songs in Metric, and I was like, I can't handle this.
I think I prefer if the bands I like just went on at 7.
Yeah, and then we're done.
And then...
That's fair. There is something to especially if it's a long show. So I go to a lot of punk shows, and they can be like, you know, like 4, 5 bands sometimes. And you're sitting there and you stand through, and sometimes you do know the openers, but a lot of times, you know, it's like you maybe peripherally, you know, like know them a little bit, and then you're there for the headliner, and you just stand for so long sometimes, and it can be a bit much. But yeah, there is something nice about that when it's like there are only 2 bands playing, and so yeah, when Death Cab was done, I was like, well, I'll stick around for a few minutes, see what's up, and then I'm going to get out of here.
Unless you really know a set time. Like Union Hall's good at... Their set times are down to like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, this band's on at 9:20, the headliner or whatever, and you can show up at like 9:15 and walk in and know they're coming on when they're supposed to.
Yeah, I don't like doing that. I know like the upside to doing that, but at the same point, I'm kind of like, man, if I'm going to go, I am going to go for the night. Eventually, it does get a little tiring to stand around. Union Hall's nice though, because like if you're upstairs or whatever, you can, if you get there, you can lean.
But if you know the band,
all these people listening who aren't from Edmonton,
if you know the openers, like you don't want to. You're not
yeah,
interested.
if it's like a horrible opener, and I'm like, I have zero interest. That's something else. Yeah, which I don't know if that's. I'm trying to think if that's happened anymore. It almost happened because when Jimmy Eat World came last, their opener was a band that I did not like. I want to say it was Beach Slang. Anyways, sorry to fans of Beach Slang. They came, and I just couldn't get into it. And then when the Dashboard Confessional show was announced, initially the opener that was rumored and listed was Beach Slang. And I was like, I just saw them. I did not like it. I have zero interest. And then they changed it, and it was the Elwins who were, I mean, whatever. At least I knew one, like So Down Low or whatever by the Elwins, and that was it. And it was, I didn't really dig that set either, but it is what it is. It is nice, you know, actually liking opening bands. And so when the band you want to see plays first, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't mind just knowing I'm going to come for like 80 minutes, see the band I like.
The only downside about the band you like playing first is depending on the show, because like, so I'm assuming when you say that, like you're still going for, like, so like when Death Cab co-headlines a show, for instance, right? But if it's like you're going to see, and the band that you want to see is like the opener, like they're the opener or whatever, the issue is depending on the show. I've been where I've tried to get there and get in for the opener, and I'm like stuck in line because it's either the show is sold out and it's taking forever to get in. Like when I went and saw Mayday Parade came a couple years ago, and they had Knuckle Puck was opening, and then now I can't even remember the name of the other band, but I was interested in seeing the first band because I checked them out, and I was like, oh, they have a couple songs I like, and Knuckle Puck was the reason I was going. And I get there, and I'm like waiting in line to get in. It's moving so slow. Finally, they open another door to get in, and this was at Union Hall. And I like the one song I really wanted to see, they were playing it while I was like in this stairwell waiting to get in. I was like, So I mean that kind of sucks a little bit, but you know, it is what it is. It does happen. But so yeah, no, Death Cab, they've been around for a while. I think this is their 9th full length album. And if I were to look at it, I mean, it's got to be, as far as a full length is concerned, for me, it's got to be sitting. I mean, it's somewhere right in the middle, I guess, but like, it's got to be 4 or 5 overall, which is pretty good considering how long they've been going at it, right? Like you mentioned, the last couple albums are kind of like there was like a flicker of hope I felt when what was the single off of their last album? Is it Black Sun? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Ghost of Beverly Drive is a single too. Yeah,
but no, the first single that came off Kintsugi was, I can't remember. Is it Black Sun? Is that what it's called?
Hard Sun, Black Sun, Black Sun.
Yeah, Black Sun. I liked that song, and I was like, "Oh man, this is great." And then yeah, and maybe it's just how they like laid the album out didn't help it, because they like all of their best songs. Because even like Little Wanderer, great song.
The best 4 songs. It could be a really good 4-song EP. Yeah, a really good one.
Like they laid them all out, the first 4 tracks, and then it, instead of like kind of like sprinkling them throughout, going okay, because then maybe it gets along a little easier. Instead, you have these really good 4 songs, and then once it falls off, you're just like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't even know if I finished it, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, it could end good. I don't know.
Yeah, I've definitely finished it. There's nothing memorable on it for me. Like, it might be a thing where, you know, in the couple times I listened to it all the way through, that I should have paid closer attention or something. But But yeah, so let's look at Thank You For Today. It has, 10 tracks? And that's the other thing, 10 tracks, and it clocks in under 40 minutes. It is a fairly quick listen. Like, it is nice in that regard. So out of 10, what do you give this record?
7.5.
7 point. Oh, you had that one in the back pocket. You're ready to pull it out. I think you're probably pretty close to right. Like, I don't know that I go over 7, but I'd say I'm probably in the area, the neighborhood of 6.5 to 7. And part of that, I think, is just like in comparison to their library of work, they've had some solid albums. Like Transatlanticism, probably one of my probably the album I've listened through the most out of maybe any record in the history of music, because it was on in my car at one point and just kept repeating, and I just listened to it over and over and over and over again. But yeah, no, I would say definitely 6.5. Hinging, like knocking on the door of 7. It's a surprisingly good record. It's got a really nice vibe. I'm about to go on a road trip here, and I'm excited to just like listen to it on repeat, kind of. But anyways, that is going to do it. So here's the deal. That's going to wrap up. So we just gave, I guess that's what we'll say 14.5 out of 20. That's pretty good. But yeah, so next week we do have a review coming out. Jordan and I are going to do one, but it's not going to be on new music, so keep that in mind. But I know like the new Belmont record came out. There's a new Me Without You EP that came out that I might actually get you to try and listen to, Mark, and talk about, because that was announced. But anyways, we will get back to reviewing, new music in the coming weeks. But for now, that's going to do it. So bye.